Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Jim. So we now know our first semi-finalist. France are through, and they'll play the winner of tonight's Brazil-Belgium game. That semi-final will take place on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So France advanced, and well, they went out in the quarter-finals 4 years ago in Brazil, losing 1-0 to Germany. They're now going at least one step further. Disappointment, of course, for Uruguay. They got to the round of 16 last time out. They go as far as the quarter-finals, but the semi-finals just one step too far. And Eamon, is it fair to say that quality won out in the end?
I think the absence of Cavani robbed Uruguay of a real class player, striker, a danger. So that was a blow they couldn't overcome. I think the second goal was really, you know, fortune. What can you say? I don't think France are going to win this tournament. And they weren't very impressive today in winning. But they're in the semi-final without being impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, we did discuss before the programme that Uruguay were always going to be a very difficult opponent.
No, they
and possibly as difficult as they'll meet.
They gave a goal away after 40 minutes, which was fair enough in terms of possession. Maybe France edged it in that way. They had a chance just before half-time to equalise. There wasn't really much in it. Yeah. And for that, you'd have to say Uruguay is a nation of 3.5 million people. You robbed them of one of their star players. France won't win this tournament, in my opinion, Peter. But you have to give them whatever. I'd give the credit to Kante, to Giroud, there he is, in a big way. And Griezmann, of course, has always played well. Yeah. But they're not a top team, and they didn't look like World Cup winners in waiting.
Yeah. Keith, would Uruguay make it difficult for any team in the World Cup? And I include all of those teams remaining, the likes of Belgium, the likes of Brazil. If they were to face Uruguay, nobody's going to steamroller them, are they?
No, I don't think anyone's going to steamroll them. I think you're right there. But with this French side, they were restricted to very few chances because they're underachieving in terms of performance levels. They're into a semi-final, granted, but with what he's got available personnel-wise, performance levels aren't there. They really aren't. And that goal, the second goal, the mistake with Muslera, didn't really get us to have a good look at how they would deal with pressure, real pressure. Uruguay coming onto them, being physical, being aggressive, just getting into areas. They don't have the quality in the central areas of midfield. Eamon's already mentioned they didn't have Cavani. Suarez, in my opinion, has been spoilt at Barcelona with that much possession and that many good players around them. We're not seeing the same Suarez. And for those reasons, it became a comfortable second half really for France. But that wasn't a really true reflection on what France have brought to the table.
Yeah, Richie, I think I'm possibly trying to make some sort of case here for France being one of the favourites to go on and win this World Cup. But
well, that's because there's not many teams left. Do you know what I mean? They do have lots of quality in that team, and they've a manager with a lot of experience. They've individuals who can turn a game, but they haven't hit what we assume is their top gear yet. And they'll probably turn around and go, well, you know, we're in the semi-final. It's been, as Keith said, a relatively comfortable, almost routine finish to that game, given the way the second got, given that they went 2 up. But it was a real shame that a team of this quality, or a match with teams of this quality, this game was settled by a goal as cheaply conceded as Muslera did there. You could see the tears from the Uruguay players even during the game and on the pitch afterwards. It's a real shame that a goal like that knocked the stuffing out of them, but France were good value for their win. They haven't given a performance which would grab headlines and say, OK, lump on them, they're going to win the World Cup, but I haven't said that about any other team either.
And when Griezmann scores, France do not lose. He scored 20 goals, they've won 18 times and drawn the other 2, so he's a good look when I should say Antoine Griezmann scores. Let's just get back to the players that France have at their disposal, Eamon, as we look towards the semi-final. And OK, Mbappe didn't have a great game today, but Griezmann pops up with a goal. Sometimes if Griezmann doesn't play, the likes of Mbappe will, you know, they have quality with these players who can score.
They have quality, but they have Kante in midfield, who's a magnificent player and would enhance any team in the world. And he covers so much ground. He was superb today, and he's superb every time he takes the field for Chelsea or whoever he's playing for. He was a central figure in Leicester's amazing Premier League win. Now, They have him. They have Giroud, who leads the line really well. Mbappe, there was nothing in the game for Mbappe today. He flourished against Argentina because Argentina were a mess and they surged forward and were made for a counter-attack. With his pace and his power, he's a counter-attacking forward, and he's dangerous when playing against a good team that's going to be attacking France. He was never going to be dangerous today against Uruguay. As we explained before the game, they defend deep. There was nowhere for him to run. He still played okay, and he still posed a threat. But Pogba is a big problem. He just doesn't contribute enough to be regarded as a top-class, world-class player. And this stage, as the nations fade away, the losers fade off, it will become a stage for the likes of Neymar, maybe Harry Kane, Hazard, the real big players. And Pogba isn't in that league. And I think I'd be interested in what Keith says, and Richie, but Pogba is central to the French enigma.
Yeah.
Why aren't they more fluent? Why did we see so little of Griezmann today? In fact, we didn't see anything of it, except for that fluke goal. So
he's constantly having to compensate for Pogba in his team selection and his balance. We mentioned at the top of the show, it's his 81st game in charge. Now, he's made tough decisions before about personnel, but he clearly sees something in Pogba that, well, certainly we're not
seeing. Okay.
To that level of, he's not a world-class player in the attacking sense. Defensively, he causes you problems. He is a big, big issue, and there's knock-on effects all over the team in terms of getting the balance right of a team, both going forward and defending.
Yeah, but you made the point before the programme that the French team would be imbalanced in the absence of Matuidi. Now, with Matuidi in the side, is there the potential to get more out of Paul Pogba?
To a degree. I thought Tolisso did a decent job just filling in positions without being magnificent on the ball. Matuidi's more experienced. He's been in and around that long time. He's played for top clubs. He knows when to go and press, when to hold his position, and he might have a better relationship with Pogba in terms of just talking to him, guiding him through games. Tolisso wouldn't have been doing that today. I think Matuidi will certainly come back into the team, but there'll still be issues in terms of Pogba, where he plays, how do you get the best out of him. But Deschamps clearly sees something in him.
Yeah. Eamon, where do you think Paul Pogba should be played, or should he be dropped?
Well, he wouldn't be in the team if I was picking it. But I'm not, I'm not Didier Deschamps. But take the European Championships 2 years ago, played in Paris, at home, to Portugal, in the final. Kante was dropped, Pogba played. Again, they lost the match. They couldn't score a goal against Portugal, who lost Ronaldo after 12 minutes. Now, that was really a dismal missed opportunity.
But can you put all the blame at the door of Paul Pogba?
Not putting all the blame. They have good players. Pavard, the right back, scored that wonderful goal against Argentina. He's a young player playing in Germany, and it's a surprise selection for this team. Hernandez, left back's okay, plays for Atletico Madrid.
Varane?
The partnership of Varane and Umtiti is still bedding in. And it's vulnerable. And you could see the vulnerability in the first half, in fact, when they were attacked. Now, they will be hurt, undoubtedly, by better attacking players. So there's the problem immediately at the back. They have a problem in midfield because of Pogba. Griezmann, I think Giroud is terrific. He leads the line well, but he's limited enough. He's not Neymar, but he's okay.
And he'll deliver a goal or two, Eamon.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's a good pro. But he wasn't even a starter for Arsenal when, Wenger was there. And they let him go to Chelsea for 17 million.
But he was used a lot by Chelsea, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He was used by Conte, but he didn't have much of an option at the time Morata was out. In assessing France, you've got to deal with a lot of things. And the biggest thing you've got to deal with, I think, is the lack of fluency. The fact that they have to labour. Denmark, it was laboured. Peru, it was very laboured. The big exception was Argentina, when Mbappe burst on the scene and ripped the Argentinians to shreds. Today, laboured again. in my opinion.
OK, Richie, what do you think of Paul Pogba and his place within this French side, who are, we have to remember, who have just advanced to the semi-final of the World Cup?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's too much influence. I wouldn't disagree with much of what's been said about Pogba. I think he frustrates at times. I think he looks to catch the eye for individual contributions rather than the more disciplined, consistent work that you demand from your midfielder. But I don't think that French mid at that dressing room at the moment will be sitting there worrying about that. If you assess their chances in terms of progressing on in this tournament, the flaws that we've mentioned here, that have been discussed here by French teams, they're still fewer than the majority of the teams left. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about them. I think Giroud is exactly what was said, very... He can be limited at times. And as for why Deschamps hasn't found his settled group, I know he's been 81 games in charge. Yeah. He's had the emergence of young players like Dembele and Mbappe, so he's tried to kind of accommodate them. You'd obviously play those in your side. So there are some concerns, but they'll sit there and go, OK, we've been fairly... No one's really landed too much of a glove on us. We're already into the semi-final. Yes, they can be better, but they've been fairly comfortable in the majority of it. Yeah,
and I suppose along the way as well, to the latter stages of the competition, you need a little bit of good fortune.
They got a huge... I mean,
they had it with the goal, didn't they? The second goal.
We spoke before the game about, you know, how disciplined Uruguay are at the back, how hard-working they are in midfield, how you really, really have to do a hell of a lot to create an opening. And then they concede a goal in this way. I mean, Pogba does well here. He wins the ball back. He advances against the Uruguay defence, which is what you want him to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players back. You would be relatively comfortable with a player shooting from that distance, particularly the way the strike was. Most players would turn around and go, OK, the goalkeeper should have that. And he should have. He's over 100 caps. Forget 100 caps. If that was his first cap, this would still be an unforgivable mistake to make at this level, at any level, really.
I know I made this point when this happened, but there was a rapid, almost change in direction as that ball flew towards the keeper. Is that an excuse for him?
No, it did move.
But I'm trying his case here.
Footballs do that.
Yeah, I mean, he should have had his body behind the ball. He flapped at it with his palms, with his chocolate wrists, and you know, it wasn't a strong hand. No, it was a very, very grave mistake.
It was, and even at the start of the half,
didn't play the package before the match.
No,
of,
good goalkeeping.
Good goalkeeping.
No, and even at the start of that second half, Eamon, he had a momentary lapse as well. So it just goes to show you're punished at this level, aren't you? And
well, again, to go back to the point here, Uruguay have 3.5 million people. They've won the World Cup twice, incidentally, but the first time in 1930. But this is a side really that is designed for battle.
Yeah.
And one of the big warriors was taken away today, Cavani. I would say if Cavani had played, the outcome may have been different. Now, it's not... We don't want to be begrudging of France, but we want to assess them fairly. And I think a fair assessment is that they're a work in progress that won't be finished before the World Cup finals.
But they were worth their victory today. Is that fair enough?
They certainly... Well, they were, yes. They were. They were... on top. They had more possession in the first half, and they got the goal that possession merited.
Yeah. And one of the issues with Uruguay throughout the game was the quality just wasn't there when they got into the final third, Keith, was it?
Well, they don't have the assets, attacking-wise, that France possess. Suarez looks so frustrated. This is Casares, far side of the box, backing up play. Again, the numbers that they get forward are admirable. This is at 1-0, trying to get back into the game. That ball needs to be lifted back in towards the penalty box. Again, the ball finds its way out. Laxalt, who should be very comfortable in these type of areas because that's where he plays for his club. Poor quality delivery into the box. Godin steps in well here. This is where they're very organised, stopping counter-attacks, which we didn't see many of France today. Ball comes out. And again, it's just a really, really poor ball in by Nandez on that occasion. Long throw, numbers forward again, keep it alive. Second phase, they do the ugly and gritty side of the game so well. That was an awkward one, in fairness, for Casares. And they lack a little bit of intricacy, a little bit of creativity, that little bit of guile in central midfield, that link-up play, that build-up play. It's just lacking. Uruguay are a solid outfit, very difficult to break down. 2 world-class strikers. One of them wasn't available today. But apart from that, they lack in certain areas. The midfield is quite young, and I think they will kick on to another level. But for this tournament, it was probably just 1 too short for them.
Yeah, and nobody's questioning the outcome. A very deserved victory for France. And Eamon, there were times where they produced some nice spells of football, didn't they?
Yes, they didn't rip Uruguay to shreds, but there were glimpses and moments. This guy Pavard is a very, very good player. And this is Mbappe. He jumped too soon. It was a very lame finish. He actually mistimed his jump. He could have taken that down perhaps on his chest. He had time to take it down if he got a shout. But that's what we were limited to in terms of good French play. This is it in the first half. This is all we saw. Again, Pavard with a ball in. Mbappe miscontrols it and it flows across the box. In the second half, with Griezmann, Pogba, simple passes, and that's a poor effort really from the edge of the box. But that's the extent of their good play. They're not carving Uruguay open, and that keeper had nothing to do until it came to the fateful moment. So that was it. That was French chances.
2 goals, set piece,
Yeah.
blunder. That was it.
Set
They
piece
didn't
and
carve them
blunder.
open, that's all. So you asked about the other teams, would they be capable? They probably haven't hit the heights either.
Yeah.
They're a tough nut to crack. But I do still think the French side and what he's got at his disposal should be doing more.
So does functional describe France's performance today, Eamon?
Well, effective. They got the result, and as Richie said, they'll be in the dressing room. They won't be. But our job is to do the analysis, not to be French. Nice as that would be. I think they'll face a moment if they play Brazil, I would guess, in the next round, and that will be a real moment.
Okay.
It'll be interesting.
I think it's one of the best. Go back to what we said pre-match. Go back to what we said at half-time. What are the strengths of this Uruguay team? No one gets space against them in midfield. Best defence, best central defensive partnership, manager that sets everyone up to know what their job is. Work hard, deny space everywhere. Now, we believe that or we don't. I certainly do. So I don't think it ties up that we could be critical then of France for not ripping them open. I think France did more than enough to win the game. Fortunate with the second goal, of course, but full value for the win.
They play into their hands, to my mind. We know that. Deschamps has to know that. Where's space against Uruguay? Wide. First half in particular, switch play earlier. They're slow, they're pedestrian, the movements, on the ball, touch. They don't switch it quick enough. They don't play with natural width. There's no balance to the team because Toliso's playing tucked in on the left. So everything had to go down the right-hand side. And Uruguay knew that. That's where Deschamps needs to be better.
OK, well, we'll have a bit more analysis coming up very shortly. And I know the panel aren't going to say it because they have to remain absolutely neutral. I can say it, though. Allez les Bleus. Well, Didier Deschamps is certainly admired as a World Cup winning player. Can he become a World Cup winning manager? That is the big question. I think, in the opinion of Eamon, certainly, that it certainly mightn't be at this particular
He was a
World
World Cup winning captain as well, and the European Championship. And
so he's a proven leader, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And he was a good manager, a coach at Juventus. But managing a national team is different. Do you play the best 11 players available to you, or do you try to create a team which doesn't necessarily contain all of the best players or the most expensive players? And that's the dilemma he's faced, and I don't think he's answered that question.
He's talked down his own chances, actually, of this squad. He compared it to the 98 squad and said the majority of us back then were leaders. Most of us were in our 30s or approaching our 30s, and he said this squad will get better. Now, whether that's just applied to dampen expectations or not.
I mean, that French squad had Henry, but it had Vieira, Thuram, Desailly,
Petit,
Laurent Blanc.
Yeah.
They were a very, very experienced group. Yeah. Indeed.
They had a very good midfield, Eamon, and maybe is it midfield where the issues are here with this French side. And we're going to talk about Paul Pogba now, because you picked out many instances of Pogba involved in the game, but not always positively involved.
Yeah, involved in a kind of, childish, schoolboyish way. He's not a bad kid. I think he's probably a very nice kid, but he's... You see him here, he's kind of... Here he is now. Watch this. It's just dumb to do something like that. Why doesn't he pick the guy out on the right? He does here. No, he doesn't. He plays a difficult ball and he kind of pretends to go for a 1-2. Again here, he plays that's a good ball, but it's hard for Pavard, who makes the effort to get there. This is a ball that only... he gives it away here under Uruguayan pressure. He knocks the ball here through in a minute for Mbappe. He's given the ball away there. This is a ball, I think, for Mbappe. Not yet. That's a cross for Giroud. and that was about the best thing he did in the first half. There's a pass he gives here, and look, he's given the ball away. This is the second half now. He volleys that away. Again, he succumbs to pressure here. He doesn't know where he is on the pitch. He doesn't have a picture in his mind of where he wants to play the ball. This is the one. Mbappe gets this. He should get the Nobel Prize as well for sprinting. But it was a tough ball to get a hold of.
But Eamon, the manager must be seeing something in Paul Pogba.
Well, I don't know what he's seeing. I mean, this is what we see. This is the goal. And maybe what he sees is the fact that he's playing in the Premier League, that he cost 100 million, and then he's going to improve. I think.
But Deschamps is hardly one who'd give in to pressure, is he? Just
not at all. I don't think so. He's a big, strong man with strong opinions, and he's the coach, and he's got a great CV. You know, what have I done?
Well,
I think the jury now the jury isn't out on Pogba.
Yeah.
Most judges that I respect have made their mind up about Paul Pogba, and he is not going to win a World Cup winners medal.
And he's mature enough and experienced
or a Premier League medal.
Yeah, okay.
He's 24.
And he's been at the last World Cup, so it's not as if it's his first time
well,
around.
he was certainly at the European Championship.
Yeah, and he was at the World Cup in Brazil. But let's talk about Mbappe, because, again, he's a young player now. He's in his infancy in this French squad in many ways, Richie. So what about him? I mean, we saw, is this a moment of petulance that we didn't expect to see?
His overall performance today, I thought he didn't do a lot. He got huge praise for his performance, particularly his goals against Argentina. He goes to ground here, and we can see that it's Christian Rodriguez that he clashes with. We've highlighted it here to try and see what level of contact is there to warrant the response we got. We looked at it from a few angles, we've slowed it down, we've highlighted it. There's nothing there. There's nothing whatsoever. So any of the critical, mocking, disappointed words you use to describe antics by Neymar or any other player that ever you've seen play acting or acting the clown, Mbappe now adds to that list. And I would hope that, because he's young, maybe he's impressionable, maybe older players in the dressing room can influence him, or maybe like other talented young players in the squad, maybe they're all afraid to go near him because they want to indulge him, because we would hope that it's the former, because he doesn't need to be doing that. No player should be doing that.
OK, that's pretty much it. I think the consensus is France winners today, but by no means the finished article.